Okay. All right, we're recording. Welcome to this interview at very big and important tech company. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so we're gonna jump straight into the technical problem. So for this problem, I'm gonna be asking you to implement a function that returns whether or not a number is unique. So I'm just going to put in the method signature here. And as you can see, the function is going to take an integer n and return whether or not it is unique. In the context of this problem, unique means that it has no repeating digits. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4 would be unique because none of the digits occur more than once. But 1, 2, 3, 1 would not be unique because the digit 1 appears twice.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
I don't believe so. Let me just give a while and think out
Yeah, of
how I would
course.
go about solving this problem. So I'll go ahead and do some typing here with kind of a general plan with maybe what steps I'm going to do for this. But let's
Okay.
just take a look at this number. So 1, 2, 3, 1, for example. So essentially what we're going to need to do is somehow go through the number. And are there any time complexity constraints or anything for this problem? So I'm assuming we'll have to go through the whole number at least once so
Yeah.
that'll be O of n time iterating through the number to find if the different elements there are repeated. But
Yeah, the optimal solution is going to be an O of n, but you can just give whatever, you can start with any solution and then try and work your way towards the optimal solution, or just try to go for the optimal one the first time, whatever you feel is best for you.
for sure. So as this is going to be, we've had a couple of options, I suppose. So we could individually break down each digit of the number using a modulus to specify each digit as we go along. So we could go with modulus 100, modulus 10, etc. Or I don't know, would be using like the two-string method be considered against the rules for this one?
No, two-string is completely allowed.
All right, sounds good.
Any
that sounds
methods
like
in the standard library should be good to use.
Sounds good. So that actually might be the approach I'll go ahead and use. So to start, we're going to number one, convert n to a string, as that will allow us to go through and store each digit individually without having to do any math as to what the digits are, as you would have to in an integer number. Then number two, we're going to have to find a method to keep track of the numbers. I'll go ahead and ask now, as I'm thinking about this, are there any constraints for n, how big or small it's going to be, if positive, negative number, that kind of thing?
N is going to be just any integer, but keep in mind that, I mean, it could be negative, but the negative sign will always occur only one time. So that really shouldn't have to factor into anything, because you can't have two negative signs in one number.
True, because the negative doesn't affect the digit specifically that's in. So if it was negative at the front, it would still be the same as if it was positive. Okay, sounds good. And then number three, we're going to have to return true or false. So as I'm thinking about some ways to do it, is we could implement some kind of a set for this number. So what I could do is create a set that stores, again, a Boolean set that stores true or false for every number within the set. And then if that number is already initialized to be true, then we would go ahead and disregard or return false if it was already marked to true in the number. So
okay, I like how you're thinking.
We could just, I'm trying to think. So the maximum size would have to be 10 also. So we could do map with size 10. I'm going to go ahead and make it because that way we won't have to go back and add more as it goes. And that's a relatively small number memory wise. And a digit obviously is 0 through 9. So those would be our 9 spots. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and make an array with size 10. So what we could do for this is go ahead. I'm trying to think. Initialized. I'll go ahead and type Boolean array with size 10 initialized to false. And then next, we're going to have to iterate through the string. So string, and then check array for true or false value. Awesome. So step 1, we need to convert n to a string. So let's just go ahead and type string. And is it all right if I go ahead and use the standard namespace for this program without typing the STDs?
Okay. Of course. Don't assume that we're importing everything that you need and that we're using the standard namespace.
Sounds good. Then we'll go ahead and do string. We'll just go ahead and name it A, I suppose would work, or X equals, let me think if I can remember this off the top of my head. Is that, do you by any chance know off the top of your head if
yeah,
that or the n is inside the
the n is inside the parentheses.
Right. So sounds good. And then after we've got that, we need to go ahead and declare our array. So let's see. So we've go ahead and got int r equals, or Boolean, sorry. So that's bool r equals. And is this, I always have troubles with remembering exactly how my arrays are declared, but can we just declare it like that and then go through and make a for loop to set each of them to false? Will that work? Or actually, you don't have always automatically initialized to false, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, don't worry too much about like the exact syntax and stuff. I mean, kind of think of this as we're writing it in C++ style, but really the important thing is the algorithm, not the perfect syntax.
For sure, sounds good. So we'd have that array of 10, and with those being Boolean, they should all automatically initialize to false in the array. Next, we're going to move on to step 3, which would be to return true or false based on the number. So what I'll go ahead and do a for each loop in here. So we could say, actually, I'm not going to name this as X because that's probably not the best. We'll just do INP for input or work. Okay. I'll do for char X in INP. We'll go through and determine each character within. And then we're going to go ahead and say for that, let me think about this. Because the only problem with this approach is I was gonna just say for the char to, we could convert it back to its ASCII value for that, but
and yeah, you can feel free to use an ASCII table, or you can just look one up if you need one.
All right, that would be great. I can just look one up in my other window here real quick.
I can also just tell you that you just need to subtract 48 from the character value.
All right, sounds good. 48 is the number. Sounds good. So if X if array at x minus 48, I could say equal to true, but we can just leave that as that because that will automatically imply true with the if statement. And we will go ahead and return. And you want us to return true if it is unique.
True if it is unique and false if it's not unique.
We'll just go ahead and return false straight away because we will know that it is not unique. And then what we are going to say is we're going to set array at x minus 48 be true. There. So then when we go through the next time, it will know what to do for that. And then after that, I believe that's all we need to do, and then just iterate through to the next number. Let me just go through and make sure. So we've got our string input equals to string of n, and then we've got our bool with array size 10, and we've got for each character in the input array or in the input string. If the array at that number is true, because that will mean it's already gone through and been set to true, to return false as we'll have a repeating digit, and then we'll set that value to true. Then by the time this loop is over, which would set it at O of n time because it will have gone through all 10 values, we can go through and just straight up return true because we will know after this sequence of events that indeed the number was true. And again, our indexes are 0 through 9, which shouldn't be a problem because that, again, number 0 through 9 would just correlate in this model to be the indexes 1 through 9 for that, or 0 through 9, my bad. Let me make sure I've got all the aspects of this problem, but converted to the string, we've got our Boolean array, then for each character in the string, set it to false, otherwise turn false, and then again, we would return true then. And I believe that is about it for my solution. If there's anything else we would go to, this would be possible to implement as a vector solution, again, with just pushing back those numbers. And there would be probably some other methods as well, but I believe that would cover it for my solution. Was there anything glaring you saw off the top of my head that wouldn't work?
All right. From what I can see that you've done a good job so far. Could you just try running through this with using a negative number as
For
input?
sure.
Just any negative number should work.
For sure. So we've got the is number unique with an inputted integer input. And then the only thing that I would think would maybe, oh, that's actually a good catch, because if I went through and did this with a negative in front, that would make us have a dash after toString. And that dash would straight up break the program.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what we're going to need to do is if n is less than 0, you go ahead and set n equal to n equal to be negative n, and just flip that value there. And from there, we shouldn't have any problems, because I forgot at the beginning that this could be a negative input.
Yeah.
And then from there, that should solve our problem.
Of course, that could definitely fix it.
Sweet.
So the solution is great. It runs in the best time that it can, and it should work. I like how you use the array instead of kind of other options, and it's definitely a valid solution. Could you show me how you would do this using the set data structure from the standard library?
For sure.
You can just copy paste it again below it and just modify it to use the set.
All right, sounds good.
Because essentially what you did, which is very smart, is you created your own set using the array, right? That you made. And since you already knew that the maximum value for it was 10, but using the standard library data structure, it's possible to just like clean up this code a little bit and make it look a bit nicer.
For sure.
Do it-
So
doing-
if we created the set, we could just say, a little rusty with a lot of my set terminology, so I'll try to remember it. But
Yeah,
we
that's
could
okay.
just
If you need any,
declare,
we're not testing
is it-
syntax, so just ask me if you
sounds
have any
good.
questions.
So to declare a set, what exactly do you type out in the front for that?
So you can
just
just do
declare-
set and then in angle brackets, the data type that you want to store in it in angle brackets, like the
Oh, sorry.
greater than or less than signs.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
These.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, those.
All right. So we could do, I suppose we could just do a set of integers for this. And then we can name
Okay.
it the set. And then for all of this, we've got so let me think for this.
So if you're converting it to a string, right, what you have is essentially is a bunch of characters, right?
Right.
So could you just set up your set to store characters instead?
Oh,
Since you're
very
already
true.
working with those.
Because yeah, it's not necessarily, if we're using this set approach, it doesn't necessarily need to go directly. So we could do set char for the set. We can take out all this input stuff. We'll take
Well,
out this array here. We've got, or hold up, we just still need the string.
yeah, that's right.
Then we've got for char x in input. And then we can just see if it's in the set already. And then after that, we'll put it in the set if it's not in the set. So if
Keep in mind that checking whether something is in the set is an O of n operation.
oh, so that could make it O of n
Yes,
squared.
set.find is O of n.
So
For, well, sort of, for an
So-
unordered set, it's, well, actually, it's a little bit more complicated than that. That's not always necessarily
right,
true,
for sure.
but it's not strictly O of one. If it's an ordered set, it would be log n, but
For sure. So basically I could use the same approach as last time and say for each value of the set at something at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, set that to true or false, or set that to, I'm trying to think if we could, so a set just stores one value, correct? So we would just store the one, unlike a map, which maps to another.
yeah, so a set just keeps track of, like, basically what a set does is when you insert something into it, the set will keep track that it's there. And if you try to insert the same thing again, you won't have two of those things. You'll just have the original one.
Right. Okay. So basically what we could do is iterate through the standard. I'm trying to think of how we would do a for loop to go ahead and set all of the values in the set, but I think I've got it right about
By
now.
default, the set just has like nothing in it. You don't have to think of the set as storing like
Right.
true or false values. You can just think of it as like kind of like a bucket that starts out
For sure.
nothing.
So for int I equals 0, I is less than 10, I plus. We could go ahead and say, well, hold up just a sec. I need to think about this a little more
Yeah.
because if I just straight up put all the numbers in, that would serve to no avail. So
Would it?
if I try and, I
So
suppose I could go through and remove it from the set maybe once I found it here.
what
and
happened?
then-
Wait, sorry, I have kind of a leading question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What happens to the size of the set when you insert a duplicate?
The size wouldn't change for that, correct?
That's
It
right.
would just, so we could insert each number in the set when we get across it. So let me just go away from this for now. So we could, so we've got the set dot, is it push back to correct for
It's
that?
an
Or something
insert.
like that? The set dot insert. Then we throw in X. And then we've got int initial size equals the set dot size. Is that fine for doing accessing the size of the set?
Yes.
Sounds good. And then we could say if the set dot size is equal to initial size, we'll go ahead and that just straight up, because if we're pushing that back and the set isn't increasing in value, we know there was a duplicate value. So then we can just go ahead and return false for that. And then again, after the stretch, this stretch goes through, then if that hasn't gone through, then we would just return true. So we've got our negative numbers filtered out. We've got our input string for that. And I believe that that's all I would need for this aspect of the set. But I don't know if there are any other suggestions you had for as I was building this, but
Functionality wise, your code works great. And I mean, time and complexity wise, it's about as efficient as it could be. So you did a
awesome.
great job. I'm just going
Sweet.
to point out just a couple of small things just to make the code a little bit simpler. One thing
Okay.
that you can do when you're doing this, I'm gonna do this on a copy of it, is when you're using the set, one of the benefits of doing that for this specific problem is that you don't need to check for negative numbers at all. Because if you when you insert like that negative sign character into the set, I mean, it'll only be inserted once, so it'll just be a new thing you're inserting into the set.
Oh, true.
Also, one thing that you can do to make this a little bit simpler code-wise is in the for loop, you can just insert the value and not bother checking the size until the end. So instead of returning true, you can return inp.length equals the set dot size, which
Oh, okay.
so instead of having to check that at every iteration, because if every value in the number is unique, then the set will have the same size as like the initial string.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I mean, those are very small things though, just to clean up the code a little bit and make it look pretty. But
For sure.
yeah, overall though,
Right.
you did great. You answered the question in 2 ways. So I mean, I couldn't really ask for more.
All right, sweet, awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Definitely, I'll give myself 1.5 because I had a little assistance for sure on the back end of that question, but I appreciated that. You're very knowledgeable on your sets. I appreciated that, and yeah.
So also feedback wise, I really like how you started planning it out and you had a great plan of approach. And I mean, when you did that on your first solution, you got it perfectly. So that's awesome. And I liked how you asked a lot of questions throughout and made sure you knew what was going on with the problem. So yeah, overall you did great.
For sure, sweet. Definitely next time I might do that again for the second
Yeah,
iteration, just plan that out before because I ran into a few problems along due to not thinking out how I was gonna do
yeah,
my
I
solution
kind of
before, but
I kind of jumped you with that one, so it's okay.
alrighty. Awesome. For sure. I'll definitely keep that in mind. That's good. Yeah, planning it usually helps me kind of take a more structured approach as sometimes I can be a bit of a scatterbrained thinker. So that kind of helps me
Mhm.
narrow all my thoughts in one place and not jump to a different idea in when I'm actually coding it out.
All right, congratulations, you got the job.
Woohoo!
You can move to Seattle, right?
Yeah. I'm out of here. If it means an offer that has to full-time offer, I don't know if I'm gonna stick around at UF. All right, awesome.
All right. Okay.